improvising a guitar solo, also known as improv, something that I always encourage students to learn how to do. Now, one thing that I'd say most guitar players out there want to be able to do is make up guitar solos. And the only way to get good at playing lead guitar and guitar solos is to play a lot of guitar solos. So that means playing to a backing track, playing to one of your favorite songs, playing to some chord progression that you came up with, and just playing with a friend, band member, and just always, as much as possible, just keep making up leads and whatnot. So one very important thing to know before you start is you got to know at least one scale, so this way you have an idea of where to begin. You could be super technical and say, like, well, you don't really need to know a scale, you just start hitting notes that sound good, but that's basically what knowing a scale is going to tell you in advance. You know, it's going to tell you, like, these notes together sound good over these chord progressions, kind of thing. So once you know a scale to start with, let's say I'm going to use the A minor scale as an example on this this video. So the A minor scale I'm going to be using, just follow the tab on screen if you need to, but basically starting on the low E, we're going to go 5, 7, 8, 5, 7, 8, 5, 7, 4, 5, 7, 5, 6, 8, 5, 7, 8, and then same thing back down, 8, 7, 5, 8, 6, 5, 7, 5, 4, 7, 5, 8, 7, 5, 8, 7, 5. So that's a good scale to learn to play over A minor backing tracks or C major backing tracks. So just go on YouTube, look up key of A minor backing tracks, or just A minor backing tracks, or C major backing tracks. So what you want to do, and this is something I just started telling students, and you're basically, the goal when making up leads is to always look or listen for the resolve. What do I mean by resolve? Basically where a note can just ring out and sound real nice against the chords it's playing. So it kind of has that sense of relief or release. So a lot of times chord progressions will have a tension building chord, and then it goes into like a resolve chord to where it sounds nice to end on it. Something like, well, a very common thing that gets used is, let's say you play a dominant 7th chord, and then you go down into a C chord. So it has a bit of tension, and then down into the C. Another thing that causes a lot of tension are diminished chords. So you could do something like you play your B diminished, lots of tension, and then resolve down to the A minor. And you can resolve up to like the A minor, B diminished, and then resolve to the C kind of thing. So that's kind of what you're going to do with your leads. You start on any note within that scale, and then you kind of venture out and then find your way back to a note that feels like home. That's the way I like to think of it. Like, you start at home, and then you venture out somewhere else, and then you come back home. You don't have to always begin and end on the same note, but if you're just starting out, that might be something to try. So I'm going to be playing to an A minor chord and a C major chord, just going between A minor and a C major, and kind of show you what I mean. So I'll just start and stop on an A note, and then after doing a few things of that, I'll kind of venture away from that a little bit. But I'm going to stay within that minor scale shape that was shown just a couple minutes ago. as an example, we'll start and stop on a C now. Stuff like that, like start playing fast, it's always good to find that resolve. Too many guitar players, when they first start out, just try and cram in note after note after note the whole time, and they'll just kind of do this the whole time. Also, just kind of going up and down the scale. Technically, it's not wrong because all the notes fit in key, but it's not the most entertaining thing to listen to. And that, doing stuff like that, I think, is very common when you're learning how to improvise guitar solos. You just, you know, for a lot of us who are into, like playing shred guitar or like fast music, I'm very guilty of this myself. That's all I would do when I was learning how to improvise. I would just cram notes in, just cram. And when I finally learned to let the notes breathe, and what I mean by that is, like, it's important to put space in between your notes. So that's another thing. When you're learning to improvise guitar solos, put space in between the notes. So that's going back to finding that resolve note. You find a note that sounds really good and let that ring out for a bit before you start venturing off into the other notes and then coming back to another resolve. So it doesn't, again, like I said earlier, it doesn't always have to be start and stop on the same note. You can do all kinds of notes that may sound like a good resolve within whatever chord is being played at that moment. And before I show an example of that, one thing that's important is I would not worry too much about what chords are being played, because I think some guitarists, I know some guitarists think it's important to know exactly what chord is being played at any given moment, so you know, like, exactly what notes you can use on that chord and whatnot. But the thing is, if you're playing in a specific key, it doesn't matter what notes you're, don't focus on, like, oh, I have to use this note and that note and this note and that note, because that's way too much thought when it comes to just improvising a guitar solo and just kind of going with the flow and going with the feel of it all and just letting loose, right? If you're playing to a backing track or a chord progression that keeps changing the key, that's a different story. But if you're playing to a backing track that stays in one key, just go with it with the scale that you're playing in. As long as you're playing scales that are in key, then you're fine. So here we go. I'm going to just resolve to different notes, just things that sound good to my ear, so this way you can see and hear how you don't have to start and stop on the same note all the time, but just leave space in between notes. Don't just cram notes in all the time. In fact, it's very important to play very slow when you're first learning how to improvise solos, so this way you hear how the notes sound against the chords. So I'll start off slow before I start getting a little flashy. But one thing I always thought was cool was the book, the Tao Te Ching. It says one part, great music spares notes. And I always thought that was really cool, because it's always those spaces in between notes where things really stand out. So here we go. Showed earlier. examples are enough to get you started on your own journey to becoming proficient at playing guitar solos just made up on the spot. So just to sum it up, everything talked about in this video, start practicing your leads slowly. Learn at least one scale, like maybe the one that's shown in this video, and then start playing the backing tracks. Just go on YouTube, look up key of A minor backing tracks or C major backing tracks. Either one will work because they're actually the same key. They use the same 7 notes. And then just try starting and stopping on the same note. Just kind of have a point to where you can begin. You use like your home base. You got your home note, and then you venture out from home, and then you come back home. You go out from the house, and then you come back to the house or the home, whatever you want to call it. And then once that starts to become comfortable, like maybe find another note that sounds good against the progression that you're playing to, and do the same thing. And then eventually you'll be able to start hearing other notes that sound good to your ear, and you'll be able to start to resolve the thing a little easier. But it takes time to develop your ear and to develop a feel for these sorts of things. So please be patient with yourself when you're learning how to make up leads. It's everyone's different. Some people have a knack for it, some people have to work harder for it, but as long as you stay persistent with it, play the backing tracks, 5-10 minutes a day, that'll definitely be a big help. The consistency is really where it pays off. So just over and over and over again, day after day, until it becomes second nature. So, and that's the other thing. Why I said you only get good at playing solos by playing solos. That's the only way you're going to really develop an ear for it and a feel for it. You just got to start making them up. So, if you have any questions with this, please let me know. And thank you very much for watching.